I never thought I'd be sitting here at 2 a.m. staring at divorce papers while my 12-year-old daughter sleeps peacefully in her room. But that's exactly where life has brought me, and honestly, I'm grateful. My name is Michael Thompson, I'm 58 years old, and until 3 weeks ago, I thought I had a pretty good handle on my life. The whole thing started falling apart on a Tuesday evening when my daughter Emma asked me something that should have been a red flag the size of Texas. "Dad, why does Sarah always hang up her phone calls when you come home?" I was in the kitchen making my usual post-work sandwich, still in my engineering clothes from Precision Tech Industries, when she asked this. Sarah, my wife of 4 years, was supposedly at her book club meeting that night. Emma was doing homework at the kitchen table, but I could tell she had something on her mind. "What do you mean, sweetheart?" I asked, though part of me already knew I didn't want to hear the answer. "She gets these phone calls, and she talks all normal and happy. But the second she hears your car in the driveway, she hangs up real quick and pretends she was doing something else." Kids notice everything, don't they? Things that us adults are either too busy or too trusting to see. I should have paid more attention right then, but I was tired. And Sarah had been my wife for 4 years. We'd built what I thought was a solid life together after my messy divorce from Emma's mother 8 years earlier. Sarah came home around 9 p.m. that night, all smiles and stories about her book club discussion. She kissed my cheek, asked about my day, and everything seemed perfectly normal, but Emma's words stuck in my head like a splinter. Over the next few weeks, I started noticing things. Small things at first. Sarah would close her laptop quickly when I walked into the room. She'd started going out more often. Girls' nights, work dinners, shopping trips with her sister that lasted all day Saturday. When I suggested we should take a vacation together, maybe bring Emma somewhere nice, Sarah always had reasons why it wasn't a good time. The bigger red flag should have been how she started talking about our financial future. Sarah worked as a marketing director at a mid-sized company, making decent money, but she'd become obsessed with our joint accounts, our retirement savings, and especially my life insurance policy. "Michael, have you updated your will recently?" she asked one Sunday morning over coffee. "I mean, with Emma getting older, don't you think we should make sure everything's properly arranged?" I told her my lawyer had everything set up when we got married, with Emma as my primary beneficiary and Sarah getting the house and half the savings if something happened to me. Standard stuff for a guy in his 50s with a kid from a previous marriage. But don't you think Emma's still too young for that kind of responsibility? Maybe we should adjust things so I can manage everything until she's older, make sure she's taken care of properly. At the time, it seemed reasonable. Sarah had always been good with money, and she seemed to genuinely care about Emma's future. What I didn't realize was that she was testing the waters, seeing how easily she could manipulate me into changing my will. The real wake-up call came about 6 weeks later. I was working late in my home office, catching up on some project reports for a new industrial automation system we were installing, when I heard voices from the living room. Sarah was supposed to be watching TV, but I could hear her talking to someone in a voice I didn't recognize. It was lower, more intimate than her normal tone. I walked to the top of the stairs to see if she had a friend over, but the living room was empty except for Sarah, sitting on our couch with her phone pressed to her ear. "I know it's taking longer than we planned," she was saying, "but I need to be careful. Michael's not stupid, and Emma's always watching. Everything." My blood went cold. Who was she talking to about me and Emma, and what exactly was taking longer than planned? The will situation is more complicated than I thought. His ex-wife's lawyer made sure Emma's protected, but there are ways around it. Tyler thinks if we can prove Emma's unstable or has behavioral problems, we can get that changed. Tyler? Who the hell was Tyler? I stood there on those stairs, listening to my wife discuss my daughter and my assets with some stranger named Tyler, and I felt like the floor was disappearing under my feet. This was the woman I'd trusted with my heart, my home, and my family's future. Once we get the house in my name and adjust the insurance beneficiary, we can move forward with the rest of the plan. Michael's so buried in his work projects, he'll never see it coming. I backed away from the stairs as quietly as I could and returned to my office. But I couldn't concentrate on work reports anymore. I was married to a stranger. Worse than that, I was married to someone who was actively plotting against me and my daughter. The next morning, Sarah was her usual cheerful self, making coffee and asking about my schedule. I watched her carefully, looking for signs of the person I'd heard on the phone the night before. But she was a perfect actress. "Honey, "I've been thinking about what we discussed regarding your will," she said, buttering her toast like we were talking about weekend plans. "I found this great attorney who specializes in estate planning. Maybe we could meet with him this week. What's wrong with Jeremy Wilson? He's handled my legal stuff for 10 years. Oh, nothing's wrong with him. I just think a fresh perspective might be good, especially with our situation being more complex now. Our situation. Like Emma was some kind of problem to be solved. That evening, I did something I'd never done in 4 years of marriage. I went through Sarah's things. Not proudly, but I had to know what I was dealing with. In her dresser drawer, underneath some old bank statements, I found a business card for Tyler Martinez, financial planning services, and a printed email exchange between them. The emails made my stomach sick. They weren't just discussing my assets. They were discussing how to get me declared mentally incompetent so Sarah could take control of everything. Tyler had outlined a plan to have me committed to a care facility, claiming I was showing signs of early dementia or depression following my workplace stress. But the worst part was an email where Sarah wrote, "Emma's the biggest obstacle. As long as she's in the picture, Michael won't fully trust me with major decisions. We need to find a way to distance her from him. Maybe suggest she'd be better off with her mother full time." They were planning to destroy my relationship with my daughter, to steal everything I'd worked for. That night, I made a decision. I wasn't going to confront Sarah directly. She was too smart and too prepared. Instead, I was going to find out exactly what I was dealing with and protect Emma and myself the right way. The next day at work, I called Jeremy Wilson and asked him to meet me for lunch. Jeremy's been my lawyer since my first divorce, and he knows me well enough to tell when something's wrong. "Michael, you look like hell. What's going on?" I told him everything. The phone calls, the emails, Sarah's sudden interest in changing my will. Jeremy listened without interrupting, taking notes on his legal pad. "First thing," he said, "when I finished, don't change anything legal until we understand the full scope of what she's planning. Second, we need to document everything you've discovered. Third, you need to protect Emma." "What do you mean, protect Emma?" "If Sarah's planning to claim you're mentally incompetent, she might also try to claim Emma's being neglected, or that you're an unfit father. We need evidence that you're both mentally sound and a good parent." Jeremy explained that cases like this were more common than I'd think. Second wives targeting their husband's assets and trying to cut out children from previous marriages. The key was building a solid legal defense before Sarah could make her move. The good news is that you discovered this early. The bad news is that she's been planning this for a while, which means she's probably prepared for various scenarios. When I got home that evening, Emma was in the kitchen doing homework again. She looked up at me with those serious brown eyes that reminded me so much of her mother, my first wife, who'd never have plotted against our family like this. "Dad, can I ask you something?" "Of course, sweetheart. Are you and Sarah having problems? She's been acting weird lately, and I heard her on the phone yesterday saying something about me going to live with Mom full time." My heart broke. Emma had been picking up on Sarah's plan without even understanding what it meant. My 12-year-old daughter was more aware of the danger in our house than I'd been. "Emma, I need to ask you something important, and I need you to be honest with me. Has Sarah ever said or done anything that made you uncomfortable?" She was quiet for a long moment, chewing on her pencil eraser the way she does when she's thinking hard about something. "Remember when you went on that business trip to Chicago last month?" I nodded. It had been a 4-day conference for the new automation system installation that I couldn't get out of. Sarah had this guy over. She said he was a work friend, but they were acting more like, like boyfriend and girlfriend. And when you called to talk to me, she told him to be quiet and pretended like no one else was here. Tyler. It had to be Tyler Martinez, her financial planning partner. "Did you see this person clearly? Would you recognize him?" "Yeah, he's tall with dark hair, maybe around your age. He was here for like 3 hours, and they spent most of the time in the living room looking at papers and talking about money stuff." That's when I realized Emma had been protecting me without even knowing it. She'd been watching, listening, and noticing things because her instincts told her something was wrong. "Emma, I need you to do something for me, and it's important. If you ever see or hear anything else that seems strange, I want you to tell me right away. Can you do that?" She nodded, but then asked the question I'd been dreading. "Dad, are you and Sarah going to get divorced?" I couldn't lie to her, but I also couldn't drag her into the adult nightmare that my marriage had become. I don't know yet, sweetheart, but whatever happens, you and I are going to be okay. I promise you that. Over the next 2 weeks, Emma became my inadvertent spy. Not because I asked her to, but because she was naturally observant and wanted to protect our family. She told me about more phone calls with Tyler, about Sarah looking through my personal files when I was at work, and about conversations where Sarah complained about having to deal with Emma. The breakthrough came when Emma approached me with something I never expected. "Dad, I've been recording some stuff." "What do you mean, recording?" She pulled out her phone, the same phone I'd bought her for emergencies and staying in touch with her mother. I figured out how to use the voice recorder app. "I've been recording Sarah when she talks on the phone about you and me, because I thought maybe you'd need proof of what she's really saying." My 12-year-old daughter had been gathering evidence. She'd been protecting our family while I was still trying to figure out what was happening. Can I hear some of these recordings? What Emma played for me was devastating. Hours of conversations between Sarah and Tyler, planning out exactly how they'd take control of my assets, get Emma out of the picture, and eventually have me declared incompetent so Sarah could inherit everything. In one recording, Sarah's voice was cold and calculating in a way I'd never heard before. "Michael's so trusting, it's almost pathetic. He has no idea that I've been setting this up since before we even got married. The man works 60 hours a week and thinks he's providing for his family, but he's really just building a nest egg for Tyler and me." Another recording captured Tyler's voice. "Once we get him into the Sunset Manor facility, we can sell the house and liquidate his retirement accounts. The daughter will be with her mother full time, so she won't be able to interfere. They were planning to put me in a nursing home. At 58 years old, these people wanted to steal my life and lock me away so they could spend my money." But the recording that made me the angriest was Sarah talking about Emma. "The kid's too smart for her own good. She watches everything and asks too many questions. Once Michael's out of the way, I'll make sure she understands that her place is with her real mother, not interfering with our life." That was it. Nobody talks about my daughter like she's some kind of obstacle to be removed. I took all of Emma's recordings to Jeremy the next day. He listened to everything, and his expression got grimmer with each minute of audio. "Michael, this is criminal conspiracy. She's not just planning to divorce you, she's planning to defraud you, potentially commit elder abuse, and interfere with your parental rights. What do? We're going to set a trap, and we're going to make sure Sarah and Tyler face the legal consequences of their actions." Jeremy's plan was simple but effective. We were going to give Sarah exactly what she thought she wanted, a chance to put her plan into motion. But we'd be ready for her. First, I started acting like the overworked, stressed husband she was trying to paint me as. I complained about headaches, seemed forgetful about small things, and mentioned feeling overwhelmed at work. I even started leaving important documents on my desk where Sarah could find them, making it look like I was becoming careless with finances. Second, Jeremy arranged for me to have a complete psychological evaluation with a court-approved psychiatrist, documenting that I was mentally sound and fully competent. This would protect me if Sarah tried to have me declared incompetent later. Third, we prepared for what Jeremy called the reveal moment, a situation that would force Sarah to show her true intentions in front of witnesses. "The key is getting her to incriminate herself when she thinks she's safe," Jeremy explained. "People like Sarah get overconfident when they think their plan is working. That's when they make mistakes." During this time, Emma continued gathering evidence. She'd become surprisingly sophisticated about it, learning how to position her phone to get clear audio and even figuring out how to save the recordings to a cloud account so they couldn't be deleted. "Dad, I recorded Sarah talking to Tyler again yesterday," she told me one evening. "They're planning to meet with that new lawyer she mentioned next week. Tyler said they need to move faster because you're starting to seem suspicious." I wasn't surprised. I'd deliberately been asking more questions about our finances, checking bank statements more carefully, and generally acting like someone who was becoming aware that something wasn't right. The family meeting was scheduled for a Saturday dinner 2 weeks later. I invited my father, Emma's grandfather, who lived about an hour away. I also asked Jeremy to be available by phone, just in case we needed legal backup immediately. Sarah thought it was just a nice family dinner, a chance for her to play the loving stepmother role she'd perfected over 4 years. She even offered to cook, suggesting we have pot roast with all the fixings. What she didn't know was that Emma had hidden her phone in the living room with the recording app running, that my father had been briefed on the entire situation, and that Jeremy was on standby to document everything. The conversation started innocently enough. My father asked about work, Sarah talked about her marketing projects, and Emma shared stories from school, but I could see Sarah getting restless, like she was waiting for the right moment to bring up the topic she really wanted to discuss. During dinner, I gave her the opening she was looking for. You know, Sarah, you've been right about updating my will and getting our finances better organized. Maybe it's time I let you handle more of the money decisions, especially if work stress keeps getting worse. Sarah's eyes lit up like Christmas morning. This was the moment she'd been working toward for months, maybe years. Oh, Michael, I think that's so smart. You work so hard, and you shouldn't have to worry about all the financial details on top of everything else. My father, playing his role perfectly, looked concerned. Are you feeling all right, son? You seem different lately, more tired, maybe a little forgetful. I've been having some memory issues, Dad. Nothing serious, but Sarah thinks I should see a doctor about it. That's when Sarah made her fatal mistake. She got overconfident. Actually, I've already researched some specialists. And I think Michael might benefit from a more structured living environment, at least temporarily, while he gets the help he needs. What kind of structured living environment? My father asked, though we'd rehearsed this conversation. Well, there's this wonderful facility called Sunset Manor. They specialize in helping people with early-stage cognitive issues, and they have excellent care programs. Emma was watching all of this with wide eyes, understanding now exactly what Sarah had been planning for her father. What about Emma? My father asked. Where would she live if Michael was in this facility? Oh, that's all worked out. Emma would be much better off with her biological mother full-time. This situation is probably too stressful for a child anyway. That's when I stood up and looked Sarah directly in the eye. Sarah, I need to ask you something, and I want you to answer honestly. How long have you been planning to have me committed and take control of my assets? The color drained from her face. What are you talking about? Michael, are you feeling okay? I'm feeling fine. In fact, I'm feeling better than I have in months, because I finally understand what's been happening in my own house. I nodded to Emma, who pulled out her phone and started playing the recordings she'd made. Sarah's voice filled the dining room, talking to Tyler about liquidating my retirement accounts and getting me declared incompetent. Michael's so trusting, it's almost pathetic. He has no idea that I've been setting this up since before we even got married. Sarah's face went through a series of expressions: confusion, denial, anger, and finally, cold calculation. The mask was completely off now. You've been spying on me, she said, looking at Emma with pure hatred. You little brat, you've been recording private conversations. Those weren't private conversations, I said. Those were criminal conspiracies involving my assets and my daughter's future. My father, who'd been quiet during the recordings, finally spoke up. Sarah, I think you need to leave this house. Now. This is my house too, Sarah snapped. I'm his wife. I have rights. Actually, you don't, I said, pulling out papers that Jeremy had prepared. The house is in my name only, purchased before our marriage. And as of yesterday, you no longer have access to any of our joint accounts. You can't do that. I can, and I did. Jeremy Wilson has been helping me understand exactly what rights you have and what rights you don't have. Turns out, planning to defraud your spouse and have him committed isn't legally protected behavior. Emma spoke up for the first time during the confrontation. Sarah, why did you want to hurt my dad? He never did anything. Mean to you. Sarah looked at my 12-year-old daughter with genuine anger. You stupid child. You have no idea how much money your father has, or how much better I could have managed it. Instead, it's all going to waste on your school expenses and his boring retirement plans. Get out, I said. Get out of my house right now and don't come back. You can't throw me out. I'll call the police. Go ahead, my father said. Call them. I'm sure they'd be very interested in hearing these recordings where you and Tyler discuss elder abuse and financial fraud. That's when Sarah finally understood that her carefully planned scheme had completely backfired. She'd lost everything, and worse, she'd revealed her true nature in front of witnesses who could testify against her. She left that night, taking only her personal belongings. The next morning, I changed all the locks and had Jeremy file for divorce on grounds of attempted fraud and conspiracy. Tyler Martinez, it turned out, wasn't even a licensed financial planner. He was a con artist who specialized in targeting middle-aged men through their wives. When the police investigated, they found he'd run similar schemes in 3 other states. Sarah tried to fight the divorce, claiming she deserved half of everything as my wife. But the recordings Emma had made, combined with the evidence Jeremy had gathered, made it impossible for her to claim she'd been acting in good faith. The whole legal process took about 4 months. During that time, Emma and I grew closer than we'd ever been. She'd saved our family with her courage and intelligence, and I made sure she knew how proud I was of her. Sarah ended up with nothing from the divorce. The prenup she'd signed protected most of my assets, and her attempted fraud voided even the small provisions that would have given her some support. She moved back to her home state, and as far as I know, she never tried to contact Emma or me again. Tyler Martinez was arrested and charged with fraud in multiple jurisdictions. Last I heard, he was serving a 3-year sentence in state prison. The whole experience taught me some hard lessons about trust and about paying attention to the people in my life who really matter. Emma had tried to warn me about Sarah's behavior for months, but I'd been too focused on work and too trusting of my wife to see what was right in front of me. Now, 2 years later, Emma's 14 and doing great in high school. She's interested in computer science, probably because she figured out that technology can be a powerful tool for protecting yourself and the people you care about. We have a good life, just the 2 of us. I've learned to work fewer hours and pay more attention to what's happening in my own home. Emma and I take vacations together, work on projects around the house, and talk about everything. Sometimes she asks if I'm lonely, and honestly, sometimes I am. But I'm not desperate for companionship the way I was after my first divorce. I've learned the difference between being alone and being lonely, and I've learned that having the wrong person in your life is much worse than having no one at all. Emma saved us both from a woman who would have destroyed our family for money. She had the courage to gather evidence when I was too trusting to see the danger, and she stood up for our family when it mattered most. I'm 58 years old, and my 12-year-old daughter taught me the most important lesson of my life. Sometimes the people closest to you are the ones you need to watch most carefully, but also sometimes the people who love you will go to extraordinary lengths to protect you, even when they're just kids who shouldn't have to carry that kind of responsibility. In the end, justice won, not because the legal system is perfect, but because truth is stronger than deception, and love is stronger than greed. Emma and I are proof of that. Sometimes the biggest threats to your family come from people you've invited into your home. Trust your children when they notice something's wrong, because their instincts aren't clouded by adult emotions and obligations. The difference between being a good provider and being present isn't just about money. Protecting your family means staying alert to the people who would use your hard work and trust against you.